Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Magdalena.
Oh,
Can you
I
hear
can
me?
hear you.
Okay.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Hello, dear Webster. Welcome to Miss Immigrant Podcast called WISE Immigrant by Miss Immigrant USA. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing today?
I am great as well. It is honor to have you with us. And you are in Florida, is that right?
Yes, I live in Winter Garden, which is about 10 miles west of Orlando.
Mm-hmm. Yes, beautiful place. Been there a few times. Just a short introduction at Miss Immigrant USA. When we say immigrant, we are not speaking about the legal status. We are speaking about the identity, about our roots, about culture, about immigrant stories, about the new beginnings and sacrifices and dignity and belonging in America. And today we would want our audience to learn who you are, Royal,
Okay,
as a veteran, as a coach, as a person. So
I
please,
got you.
with your words, introduce yourself. Tell us about you.
All right, it'd be my pleasure and my honor. Uh, my family history is very eclectic. On my father's side, uh, my ancestry comes from England all the way back from 1630s.
Wow.
Uh, the fifth governor of Connecticut was John Webster, who I can trace my roots to directly. And so we've been here on my dad's side a long, long time. We immigrated from England. On my mother's side, though, I'm a first generation American. Uh,
Mhm.
my mom was born in Spain, but moved to Cuba when she was only 6 months old,
Mhm.
and then uh, was raised there. My father was living there at the time. My grandfather, I'll back up. My grandfather went to Cuba to build the railroads in Cuba, and he fell in love with the country, and he brought his family over. And then uh, my father met my mom, and my mom, uh, and he married my older brother and sister were born in Cuba, but then in 1960, when Fidel Castro took power in '59, a year later, in October of 1960, he kicked out all the Americans, not only the Americans, but the American companies and everybody else. And they moved to Miami, Florida. So I was born in Miami in 1962. I was raised within the Cuban culture. Uh, I speak Spanish fluently. I went to church growing up, both the English Mass and the Spanish Mass. I would go to the English Mass with my father and then turn around and go to the Spanish Mass with my mother uh, growing up, which meant a lot of church. But it also meant that I speak both English and Spanish quite fluently with the dialect of a Cuban. Whenever anybody hears me speak Spanish, they always know right away of my Cuban heritage. Uh, so that's a little bit of where my family came from. And then I joined the military when I was 18 years old, and I traveled extensively abroad. And I've continued to travel abroad. And I love to visit not only other countries, but all within the United States. I've been to 49 states, I've been to 118 countries. So it gives me a vast uh, outlook as to a worldview and a national view, not only locally but globally. And as I am a proud American, I always say that I'm also a citizen of the world because I think the more we learn about each other and our backgrounds and everything else, the smaller the world comes, and we find out we have so much more in common than we have different.
Yes. How was it growing in such a mixed family? Were you ever confused where you really belong? What's your identity? You know, you.
No, I think my parents did a really good job of understanding that I was an American uh, with a Cuban background from my mother's side, actually Spanish, but she was raised in Cuba. So the culture that I was raised in, especially down in Miami, the Cuban culture is very uh, prevalent down there. So I'm very aware and going to quinceañeras and eating, arroz con pollo and everything else, all the food that my mom would make, and having my cousins and celebrating Christmas, the big holiday for Cubans in the Catholic religion is not actually Christmas Day, but it's the night before Christmas Eve when they have the big midnight mass and the big celebration. And the meal with the family is Noche Buena, which is the night before Christmas. So all those traditions. Uh, but I was also very aware of my American background with my father and the history of my lineage and all my ancestry on the American side. So, and I think it's important to realize that we are all immigrants unless we are actually indigenous from here. But at some point, we all come from other places. So
Yeah.
it was a good background. It was a good mix, and living in Miami and then traveling away from Miami, realizing that not every city is like Miami. It is not as culturally diverse as Miami. I mean, you have New York City and you have a couple other cities out there.
Um, as you traveled so extensively the States, what is your perception? How, in general, people, when they learn about your background, immigrant background, how do is it mostly positive or is it as well a negative reaction or connotation that they have toward the immigrants being immigrants and immigrant identity or identifying themselves as immigrants?
I think that from traveling around, people are more curious than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they want to know, and they talk. Here in the United States, I think we're very aware of our country, but not as globally as, let's say, people in Europe, people in Asia. They're more globally aware a lot of times of what goes on. And the fascination in Europe, I spent 6 years in Europe, in Germany, to be precise, living in Germany when I was in the army. And they are fascinated with our lifestyle. And so many people want to come here to visit, and a lot of them would like to come and live here for a few years, if not to move here permanently. So I think it's more fascination and curiosity than judgment.
Yes. You mentioned you joined the army at 18. That's pretty, how to call it, brave decision on and a mature decision at such an age. What led to that?
So I did not know what I wanted to do at the time, uh, and I knew eventually I wanted to go to college. So what I did at the time, I joined the army with the idea of serving 4 years, getting the GI Bill, and then coming out and going to the university and getting a degree. And somewhere in there, I really enjoyed what I did in the military, and I stayed uh, a lot longer than I thought I would. Worked in military intelligence my entire time in the army. I was a Spanish linguist.
Mm.
While I was in the army, I worked a lot of different missions within military intelligence, and I really was fascinated by what I was doing, and it kept me intrigued. And then eventually, I decided it was time to get out, and I got out and I went into education. And
Mhm.
then for a little bit, for a while, I got out of education, and then came back to education. Unfortunately, education and a teacher doesn't pay great, uh, so I made some decisions to get out. And then when my youngest son went off to college, I came back to teaching.
Any secret mission that you can share with us that you did?
Uh, So what really hooked me at the very beginning, in 1981, this is going back a long time, so it's all known now.
Okay.
In 1981, in December, I had just gotten to Germany, my first duty station, and in Italy, there was a terrorist organization called the Red Brigade, and they kidnapped General Dozier right before Christmas. And I worked that mission. And what made it fascinating for me is a lot of times when you're stationed overseas around the Christmas time, a lot of the people leave and come back to the States for Christmas vacation. But, it's called military leave. So we were really drained as far as all the expertise and all the senior people that were stationed where I was at. And being a new person, a lot of responsibility was thrust upon me, and the intelligence that we were able to gather helped the Italian police actually find out where General Dozier was being located, and then he was rescued. And I believe he's still alive. Actually, he's probably in his 80s by now, but that was what really got me going, and seeing what intelligence done well can do.
Mhm. Yes, thank you for sharing that. And thank you so much for your service.
My honor.
You are now running for the District 11 in Florida. Why,
Yes.
why Congress? What happened? How did you make this decision?
So, as we've talked a little bit here, I served in the military. I've served as a teacher. I've coached my entire life working with kids, and the youth of this country is very important to me. And I think currently the direction we are going, I don't think that we have the best future plan, both environmentally, monetarily, with the deficit that we're running. I don't like. There's nobody probably more against war than veterans, because they've seen it firsthand, or they've acknowledged what happens during a war. And when we started as a country attacking countries and going in, I thought I needed to go in and do something to try to make a change in Congress to limit the ability of just attacking countries, and making sure that Congress was kept in the loop. And if it's to defend this country, by all means. I just don't think war of choices and aggression are a way for our future, for our youth, and for the future of this country. I don't agree with this administration that's currently in office.
Your campaign speak about courage and constitution. After serving in the army and working in education, what does real leadership mean to you today?
So real leadership is holding yourself accountable for the decisions. And they might not be popular decisions. And I'm not saying that I disagree with everything the administration does, but you have to make decisions that are based on the best for this country and the best for its future. And I think leadership, collective leadership, is having the courage to say no, and the courage to stand up for what you think is right, and speaking out when you think that the decisions are wrong for this country. And I don't think we have enough people that shout out loud enough. We have some, but I think too many people don't understand what leadership is. Leadership is not blindly following somebody just because you're within a party. Leadership is standing up and making people account for their decisions. And that goes for both Republicans and Democrats. It doesn't matter to me if it's a Democrat making a decision I don't agree with. I will stand up and say no. If it's a Republican that is making a decision that I do agree with, I will say yes. So leadership is about courage and integrity.
And as you mentioned, you work as a teacher and coach for many years, and you had a close interactions with the young people, with their families, probably their parents. Yes. Uh,
Yes.
what are you hearing from them? What are the biggest challenges that they are facing?
So right now, and then within the last few years, I mean, COVID changed our world, both health wise and economically. And we were starting to come back. And then we made some decisions that really made affordability and the economy a challenge. Here in Central Florida, housing is a big challenge, and the cost of housing,
Mm,
uh, everyday groceries.
mm,
Uh, in 1974, we the United States of America, the Trade Act of 1974 gave the power of tariffs, a limited power, to the President of the United States. Prior to that, it was always Congress that decided on tariffs. But tariffs, anything to get through Congress does take a long time. So they gave the president limited power of the tariffs. And the current president abuses that, and it cost. For instance, when he raised the beef prices in Brazil because he was angry at Brazil, he put a tariff of 47% on beef. Well, currently we're at a 70-year low with cattle in the United States. Uh, Mexico has a new parasite that is affecting their cattle. So there's a cattle shortage, and to raise the price even more because of tariffs just hit the kitchen table, and it hurt us dramatically. And coffee, the price of coffee, the prices of chicken have gone back down, but we had all sorts of price problems in our grocery bills. The attack on Iran, as you can tell, has affected the oil. And when you affect oil, it doesn't only affect the gas, but it affects everything because we have to ship everything. So affordability is really a big issue with the parents and with the kids. Even when you're talking, and I teach high school,
mm,
whenever you've talked to the students and the young adults that I work with, one of their main concerns is the environment,
mm,
uh, and the lack of an awareness of climate change and the challenge that we have with the climate, because they're looking at their future and they see the what's happening and the attitude of drilling in places that we shouldn't be drilling for oil, uh, urban sprawl where we're knocking down uh, areas of preservation and environmental. The in here in Florida, we have a lot of problems that are growing with urban sprawl because so many people have moved down here, and houses are just going up. And instead of centralizing and uh, redoing certain areas, they're just continuing to grow and spread. So all these problems that we have are really big concerns with the parents and especially the young adults that I work with.
mm. Many people, they care about their communities, but they do not know how to get involved. What would you tell someone who wants to make a difference, but feels politics is just too confusing or too far away from them? And nowadays, politics has such a bad, um, how to call it, you know, such a negative outlook that
Yes.
you don't even want to get involved because of that. So how would you convince them otherwise? What would you say?
So there's a couple things to that. Uh, I think the word you were looking for was stigma. It has a negative stigma to
Yes.
it. Uh, and one of the things that I've made it very clear to everybody, when you first hear somebody that's running for office the first time, they always say the same thing. I'm not a politician.
I
Well, you are a politician because you're running for office. And the day that you sign that paper saying you're running for office, you're a politician. And to me, when you say that you're not a politician, that's the first lie.
mm,
Because everything after that, to me, again, in my opinion, it becomes easier and easier to lie. And that's where the stigma lies, because it starts on a lie saying that you're not. If you're a politician, you're a politician. Instead of denying that you're a politician, change what a politician is. So, President Truman, many years ago, because at one point we were referred to politicians as statesmen. And many years ago, before he passed, he said that a statesman's a politician that's been dead 5 or 10 years. Well, I'm very much alive, and I'm trying to be more of a statesman than a politician. The thing that I tell, especially the young adults that I teach in high school, and even the parents, the key to everything to me is education.
mm,
Education, education, education. And just educate yourself before you start listening, because there's so much information and a lot of disinformation out there. And the stigma with politics is very negative because everybody campaigns on a negative thing. I try to do it on a positive thing, us on what we can do and how to better our community, our state, our country, and even the world, and say what we can do instead of what the opposing side is doing. And even though I've said some things already in this conversation about what we're doing that I don't like, but I have hope, and I truly believe we can turn this around and make a huge difference. And that's the biggest reason. Education is one of the biggest reasons why I want to run, is to change our education program. But education's a key, and then start small. Start with your community, find out about your school board, get involved with your local community, and then branch out from there. And then it's not as overwhelming. And there's a lot of community involvement locally. It's not enough, but there is community involvement, and you can go to meetings almost every day of the week if you really look for it, and find something that you're passionate about, whether it's your background and join the Black Caucus, or if you're Hispanic, join the Hispanic Caucus, or if you're the environment, join the Environmental Caucus. There's a lot of people doing a lot of good things out there. It's just not celebrated enough because good news doesn't sell as much as bad news.
yes. There's no excitement there.
No, there's not. And doesn't matter the media station right now, the media companies right now. The media company loves where we're at right now because people watch the news because they want to catch up on what's going on. And media sells negative. And regardless of what side they lean to, they like where we're at right now because it's chaotic.
Yeah, there's nobody saying like, oh, they make a deal, this party with this party, they compromise on that. Nobody's talking like this. It's
Yeah, nobody talks about the positive aspect of it, and a lot of it has to do with what we've done globally in the last 20 years. I don't know if you're aware, we only have 80 ambassadors, maybe 90 right
mm,
now out of 195 that we have available positions. And
mm,
it's continuously gotten less and less. And it's a trend that's happened way before the current administration is in there. Whereas China has 195 ambassadors,
mm,
and they invest a lot of time in diplomacy.
mm,
Uh, I'm not saying I agree with China ideologically because I do not, but uh, they're much more diplomatic and much more worldly. They have a program called Belts and Highways, I believe it is, where they're helping build infrastructures throughout the world,
mm.
Central America, South America, Middle East, and they're investing in infrastructures to help them out. We do more humanitarian aid and we do more military assistance, but the diplomatic way of getting more noticed is because you see the infrastructure a lot faster than you see what we help other countries with. So it's a lot of politics in that way, but there's a lot of good things that we still do.
what makes your campaign different and what makes you different? There are many candidates, many viewpoints. How would you describe what differentiates you from the other candidates?
We're all unique. Everybody's unique. But I'd like to think that I represent the American people as well as anyone just because of the diversity of my family, my history, who I am. Uh, my wife is Jewish. Her father is a Holocaust survivor from Hungary.
Mm.
Uh, I am half Hispanic and half American. My I have two daughters and two sons. My two daughters have six kids between the two of them, and they are all biracial. Uh, my first wife, who we when I got out of the army, we grew apart, and is the mother of my two daughters. Was it? Her father was indigenous, and her mother was German, or her grandmother was German on her mother's side. So I am a melting pot within my family. So I know what diversity means, and I know what the struggles and the positives, and I'm very aware of the culture of everything. So I can relate, I believe, to just about anybody, no matter where they come from. Uh, I am not rich by any means, but I make enough money to live comfortably. But I've also gone through times in my life where it's been hard and struggled on a day-to-day basis to make ends meet. So I've been around, and I think I'm more well-rounded because of that. And my travel definitely separates me from most people.
Yes, wow, you are really um, a representative what America is and all the cultures. Everything is in your home.
And I'm very proud of that. And
Yes.
I really attribute that to being raised in Miami, because Miami is a very multicultural city. It leans more Hispanic, but there's a lot of Europeans that live in Miami. A lot of Germans and a lot of British people have bought houses down there, and as well as here in the Orlando area. It's very multi national area. A lot of Venezuelans have moved here. A lot of Brazilians have moved here. People from Haiti live in the area. Europeans live here. So it's very diverse, and I'm very comfortable in that diversity. And I think I also listen to people's stories, because I think everybody has a story, and I think everybody wants their story told. And I think I do a good job of listening to people also.
Um, that you mentioned about all those your family members coming from different roots, different cultural backgrounds, and all experience that you combine. Um, what is your perspective on immigrant identity? That there is a lot of second generation, third generation citizens who are identifying still as immigrants, and they would like more of unity, to see more unity in the country. How do you see that, and how do you think we can more implement of and make this happen?
So, first of all, life is interesting because you view it backwards, but you live it forwards. You can only see where you've been. You can't see where you're going, but that's how we live going forward. But if you don't know what your history is, if you don't know your background, I think you lose out on some of your identity. So I think where your family comes from is very important, uh, and I think that by the third generation, I think people tend to or start to assimilate a lot more. I think the first generation, and it happens no matter where the immigrants come from,
Mhm.
they tend to move where there's other immigrants from the same uh, area. Not only that, they stay in touch where they came from, and they say, "Oh, come live over here," and then they do. And then as the second and third generation starts to assimilate more and become more Americanized, the globalization of America, uh, they start spreading out more. And but it's still important to recognize where your family came from. But I think, again, I go back to education. I think the more we know about each other, the more we find out that we have the same values. We want a better life for our kids. We want safety. We want security. We want good paying jobs. And it's all about education and not uh, being biased. And I think that one of the things that really helps Europe in that is so many people in Europe speak multiple languages. And here in the United States, because we're isolated a little bit, we don't speak as many languages as people in Europe do. And culturally, we're such a big country that we tend to overwhelm uh, incoming people, incoming immigrants, and expect them to uh, assimilate tomorrow. They arrived yesterday and they're expected to assimilate tomorrow, and that's not how the world happens. And if you look back at every single person that, and I mentioned it earlier, we're all immigrants. We're all immigrants that come here, and it just some people have been here a little bit longer, but they don't realize that when their grandparents or great grandparents came over, they had the same ties to their countries that a lot of people have here. And not everybody that comes here because of choice. Some are forced here, fleeing from really bad situations in their homelands. Uh, there's a lot of places that are not safe in this world, and they find salvation and safety here in the United States.
But on the other hand, sometimes when I, go to Florida or even visit some places in New York City, you go and they don't speak any English. And you can communicate, even you are in United States. For example, maybe predominantly there is a Spanish language, or maybe there is Arabic, or you go to Russian neighborhood, everyone speak Russian. Even in the store, you cannot buy anything because there's no communication.
Yes, and I think that that happens for the first two generations. But I think that by the third generation, everybody's starting to speak English. Is not you. I'm sure you know English is not an easy language to learn.
Try to
Uh,
learn Polish.
I was just in Poland in the spring.
Okay.
Uh, Pol- Polish and Hungarian are very difficult languages,
Yes.
especially Hungarian. Uh, but I was just in Poland in the spring. One of the things I do, and I'll get back to where we don't learn the language fast enough here, and we don't. But one of the things I've done with my wife for the she's in education also for the last 15 years. We take trips overseas with students. We take students overseas to whether it's Europe. We've gone to Australia, New Zealand. We've even gone to Fiji to take students just to have them explore other countries. But and that's what I was saying earlier, that when people immigrate here, they tend to immigrate in proximity to each other from the same country. And with South Florida and Miami, it's not only that you have Cubans coming over, you have Venezuelans, Nicaraguans, Costa Ricans, Ecuadorians, Peruvian, and they all speak Spanish. And even though there's dialects of Spanish, they all live in South Florida. And it's so easy in South Florida, and I'll just use that because that's the example I know best, uh, to not have to learn English,
Yes.
because everything you can live and speak Spanish and never speak English. But then you have the children as they grow start to actually speak more of a Spanglish, where they're speaking Spanish and then they break into English and go back to Spanish, and it's a mixture. But I think the constant migration of Spanish people speaking people to South Florida is really perpetuated that longevity of not learning English, because it's been Now it's been 65, 66 years now that there's been a constant flow to South Florida from Spanish speaking countries. So South Florida is very unique, but it happens in little areas like you have Boynton Beach up in New York, where a lot of Russians live. Uh, in Chicago, you have certain areas. Uh, so yes, I do understand it, and again, education. They, as well as we being educated, they need to also be educated in the English language.
Yeah.
But
Royal,
it's hard because they find comfort in it.
yes, yes, it is. Royal, because this is the Wise Immigrant Podcast, please share with us a wisdom that you would like to share with the audience and with us.
I was in Djibouti many years ago. It's a very poor country, and I was going. Uh, I wanted to go. I was very young, and I wanted to go to Djibouti to be able to say I went to Djibouti. So I went there, and I was going from village to village with two other gentlemen, and we stopped at a very poor village, and they had uh, grass huts. They cooked outside. They lived by the river. They did not have anything but a dirt floor, but everybody in the village smiled. And I ate dinner with. I was invited to eat dinner with an elder, uh, and everybody. We had an interpreter, and everybody was jovial. Everybody was happy. And I asked the elder. I said, "How is it that you have so much joy in your life with not having any with having so little?" And he looked at me and he said, "What don't I have? I have my health. I have my family. I have a roof over my head to keep the weather away from me. What is it I don't have?" And sometimes we look for monetary or things to complete our life when we have everything we need within ourselves and with our family. So we don't need to look for things to be happy. We need to find peace within ourselves and be grateful for the things we do have.
Yes, thank you for that. That's a big reminder for all of us. Thank you so much, Royal, for joining us today on Wise Immigrant Podcast and sharing your story and taking this journey. And we're going to support and follow you on this big journey for Congress.
I appreciate that, and thank you for having me. And also, I think your podcast is very unique. I've listened to it, uh, and I think you do an amazing job. And it's such a important thing to get everybody's story out there. So thank you.
And thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope we see each other again.
All right, I look forward to it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.